Greetings, friends. Thank you for listening to The Hands of History, a production of the Society of Massage Archives, the only nonprofit dedicated to preserving the history of massage and bodywork. Because of people like you, the Society of Massage Archives exists. An archive is more than a collection of old papers and objects. It is a deliberate, organized effort to preserve history, the records, stories, and voices that would otherwise be discarded, damaged, or lost to time. Thanks to our Founders Club, 50 individuals who stepped up to help build the foundation for preserving the history of massage therapy, SOMA's work is now underway. That support has made it possible for us to begin safeguarding the stories, documents, and artifacts that have shaped our profession. But preservation isn't a one-time act. It's ongoing work. You're building something lasting. Whether it's digitizing collections, expanding access, or integrating historical knowledge into practice and education, SOMA is demonstrating how massage history matters. As a 501c3 nonprofit, we are working towards a dedicated, professionally maintained archive, one that protects our past and makes it accessible for future generations. If you believe that massage therapy's past deserves long-time care, access, and stewardship, we invite you to become a recurring contributor. Whether it's $20 a month or any amount that feels right to you, every gift, big or small, goes a long way in fulfilling our mission. Your monthly contribution helps sustain SOMA's operations year-round, so history stays alive and available for everyone in our community. History doesn't preserve itself. People do. Learn more about becoming a recurring supporter today at societyofmassagearchives.org. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the Society of Massage Archives. These views and commentaries represent the recollections of both the hosts and the guests, and as such are subject to the occasional slight inaccuracies. The content here is for informational and educational purposes only. You should conduct your own historical research when determining the veracity of any of the statements made within.
Greetings and welcome to the Hands of History podcast, a production of the Society of Massage Archives, where we delve into the rich tapestry of massage therapy's past, explore its evolution, and share the stories that have shaped this vital practice. Today is Monday, January 5th, 2026. I am your host, Kirby Clark Ellis, and I'm joined today with Dolly Wallace. Dolly brings a wealth of experience as a massage therapist, as board president of the National Certification Board for Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork, advocate for more than 102,000 therapists of the American Massage Therapy Association, and visionary and leader in the massage profession. As a licensed massage therapist, she is a strong advocate for the fair regulation of the massage therapy profession. During her 30-plus years of experience as a full-time practitioner, she has held several senior-level positions on the AMTA National Board of Directors, to include serving as national president from 2017 to 2018. Dolly served as a trustee on the Massage Therapy Foundation's Board of Trustees from 2012 to 2014, and again from 2018 to 2019. Dolly also served on the Safety Advisory Council for Massage Envy. In 2019, she began serving on the Board of Directors for the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork, where her work and that of the organization focuses on elevating the profession through encouraging excellence in schools, continuing education, therapist competency, and high standards. A native of Michigan, Dolly was instrumental in establishing the education and professional standards and licensing requirements for massage therapists in Michigan. Dolly remains a tireless advocate for massage therapy as a part of integrative care. She has published the Pain Practitioner, which was the quarterly publication of the American Academy of Pain Management. Additionally, Dolly has been awarded the AMTA National Distinguished Service Award, AMTA's National Outstanding Volunteer Group Chair for Government Relations, Florida Chiropractic Association's Massage Therapist of the Year Award, and Massage Therapy Foundation's Humanitarian Award. Wow. Welcome, Dolly.
Thank you.
That is quite the biography. I can't wait to learn more and really stitch that story together. Take me back to the very beginning. What pulled you into the world of massage therapy?
Well, originally my plan was to become a juvenile criminal defense lawyer. And the first murder trial that I attended for two 15-year-old boys, I saw the injustice of the system. It really failed one of the boys. And so I thought, I really can't be a part of this. And so I stepped back from that for a while. And my husband was in chiropractic college, and I would help him study. And I loved studying the anatomy, the physiology, asking him all sorts of questions. Just fell in love with the whole idea of the human body. And so when he first began practice, I worked in his office and I saw people getting better. And I thought, I want to do this. I want to help people get better because I saw the results of good health care. But I wasn't willing. We were married with 3 children at the time when he went away to college. We had to move out of state to Iowa and then move back to Michigan to practice. And I thought, oh, I can't do that to the kids again, move out of state again. So I started to explore massage therapy. And it was fairly new at that time. It wasn't regulated at all. And there weren't any schools in my area. The closest school was three and a half hours away. So I had a choice, a health enrichment center in Lapeer, Michigan, or Chicago School of Massage, Bob King School in Chicago. They're both about the same drive. I lived on the west side of of Michigan, right by the lake. And I thought, oh, Chicago in the wintertime with the parking and all that. And Lapeer, at the time, we didn't have cell phones, and I thought, well, if I get in a ditch or somewhere, I'm better off in Lapeer than Chicago. So I chose Health Enrichment Center, and it was a great choice.
Awesome. A couple of things coming up there for me in that answer, Dolly. First of all, can you name or identify what about criminal justice had you on that track originally? What really sparked or piqued your interest in that?
I love the youth. I love young people. And so I thought if I could help young people in some way, that would be my way to do it. And I was always interested in justice and law. And I really did enjoy the law classes. They were so enlightening. But you sit through a murder trial and you hear everything, and it's like, oh, this is going to be my life.
I can only imagine that it probably gets pretty dark and at times even gruesome, I would imagine.
It was. It was.
Is there anything from that background that has transitioned or easily, transferable skills that you picked up along the way that's featured in your massage therapy career, Dolly?
Oh, I don't really know. I think something that happened that really helped me to grow was that years later, the murder victim's son came to me as a client. I knew who he was. He didn't know that I sat through that trial, but he was the one who found his mother's body. And he was still going through some issues, and it took its toll physically on him. But I never told him who I was or that I had sat through the trial. But I thought, the world works in mysterious ways, that I would get him as a client and be able to help him through the process of healing. So that was my way. I guess I thought I'm still involved somehow in this process, which is kind of weird. But his wife later became a client, and his mother-in-law did. So I had that connection with that family that had been so tortured, so hurt, and I could help them heal in a different way. So that was amazing to me. It was a real eye opener.
Yeah. What a unique position to kind of be in as a,
Yeah.
I would think. This might be a curveball question, Dolly, that's just coming up in my head. I'm wondering, in massage therapy, we do exercise quite a bit of anonymity in instances like that, confidentiality, things like that. I'm wondering, do you think there would have been a more impact to the healing process for that particular client if you were able to share your background with him, that you did sit through that trial, and that there's an additional layer of understanding that you have in that position?
I didn't really know at the time, and I did reach out and talk to one of my clients was a social worker, and I did ask for advice.
Hmm.
And she said, unless he specifically talks about the trial or the two boys or whatever, don't bring it up. He was talking about the hurt of losing his mom or whatever. So I did seek advice because I didn't know how to handle. I was young. I was new in this profession. So I did reach out to someone more qualified than myself in that area.
I think that's really smart and a prudence that not many, especially not many fresh therapists, perhaps have. So thank you, Dolly, for sharing that story and diving a little bit deeper in that with me.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like your husband, and I can't believe you said 3 children at the time as well.
3 children. We were married, and I had been at my job 14 years, and he'd been at his 11th when he decided to change careers. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. We both quit our jobs. We were so poor for the first time in our married life. But it was a growing experience because we no longer went out every Friday night with our kids for dinner. We stayed home and played Monopoly. And we were one of the few married couples with children there. Most of them were young students coming in, single, right out of college. They loved to come to our house to tease our kids, to play with our dog, to have a home cooked meal. And we couldn't afford to feed them. So they would bring like steaks or burgers and we'd furnish the cheap potatoes. And yeah, it was a total lifestyle change, but a good one, a
Yeah.
good one.
I would imagine a lot of lessons in that
A lot of lessons. Yeah. We qualified for once a month, we got a free 5-pound box of cheese. That was from the government. That was so nice. So we
experience.
had cheese on everything.
I'm wondering, well, no, if you were in Iowa, I was going to say, I wonder if that has anything to being so close bordering Wisconsin cheese, but
I
maybe
don't
I'll
know.
make a leap there.
I don't know.
Let me ask you, Dolly, what time frame is this that your husband's making this sudden career shift and that your family's having to adjust to this?
We left our jobs in 1979 and he took the accelerated program, which meant he went through in 3 years rather than, well, he had 2 years of prerequisites first. He took those in our hometown and then we left and moved to Iowa in 79. So he went full-time year round, which means he took like 32 credit hours his first semester. They weed you out right away. You're committed or you're out of there. And so it was tough and he was gone a lot. And yeah, so and I took some classes at the time and I'm an overachiever, I have to make the president's list and all that. And I thought I can't keep going to school while he's going to school or we're going to kill these kids. So I stepped back and supported him through that. And I worked for a man who made investments. And I learned a lot, like we got student loan money and I learned how to invest it. We got a check once a year for $5,000 and I learned how to invest it. So we had enough money to pay 1 month's rent at the end of that year. So it was a good job at the time for me.
One thing, and I've talked about this a little bit before with other guests, I don't think there's any better teacher in the world really than challenges and struggles. Like you learned a little bit more finance through going through some financial struggles. And I think physical pain also is one of the best teachers to make a really great massage therapist. Would you agree with that kind of? Am I missing some marks here? Or does that sound
It was a growing experience, but we look back and we think it was a good experience, and it was a good experience for our kids. And the Iowa school systems were excellent.
good?
So yeah, our kids got a really good education there.
All right. What did you think about maybe any like cultural differences from Michigan to Iowa that really stick out to you from that memory?
There wasn't a lot because they're still Midwesterners, so they're still very friendly. We lived right across the street from a cornfield, which, yeah, that was interesting because we were part of the city of Davenport, Iowa, but yet there's a cornfield right across the street. Now there's a high school there, but at the time there was a cornfield where kids could run and play, and it was a great neighborhood. Yeah.
Awesome. And it sounds like that's kind of where you kind of started to really fall in love with this anatomy, physiology. Had that ever piqued your interest before?
Not a lot. Not a lot. My husband's family has always been into medicine. His dad's an osteopathic physician. Two sisters are nurses. My sister is a chiropractic assistant. So, it was always there, but I never really thought about it before.
Hmm. So there's a family tradition in your lineage of
Yeah,
some sort of caretaking going on.
yeah,
It sounds like your entry level education at Health Enrichment Center came after the move back from Iowa back to Michigan, right?
it did.
I
It
th-
did.
so what really solidified that decision for you that you were like, massage therapy?
Oh, just watching people get better in the chiropractic office. And so we talked about it a lot. And rather than going back to chiropractic college, we thought, you know what, massage is a good adjunct therapy with chiropractic that I could probably massage his patients for a few minutes first, and then he would adjust them. And that worked fine at first. But you know what? It grew where I had my own clients, he had his. We saw some of each other's, but not all. So it didn't work as we originally planned. It worked even better than the original plan. But the commitment to go to health enrichment was huge because, like I said, it was over 3 hours away. We didn't have the internet to explore what the school looked like or any of that. And I watched your interview with Sandy and she talked about her humble beginnings, but I didn't hear her say that her school was in a barn. Did you know it was in a barn?
I'm not sure that they ever verbalized this, but the interview with Luke, he gave the impression that there were very rural influences. And no, I guess I did. To answer your question just directly, I guess I didn't know that school was taking
Oh,
place in a barn.
well, I didn't know it was in a barn either. And we didn't have student loan at the time. We paid up front.
Mhm.
I drive cross country. I see this beautiful white farmhouse, and they had parking all roped off in this big red barn. I get out of my car and I said, "Where's the school?" Thinking it's behind the barn. And they said, "Well, you just go in the barn and they'll direct you." So I went in the barn and they had all these seats set up. And I thought, it's in the barn? How are people going to respect me when I tell them I went to school in a barn? But you know what? It was the best entry-level education ever. And I think I was her third class, maybe, that was in the barn.
Okay.
So Sandy was new in education at that time. She wrote all her own books, but they were like pamphlets. They aren't like her books she publishes now. So we'd have a pamphlet on polarity. We'd have a pamphlet on sports massage. She brought in great educators. We got to meet Dr. Leon Chaitau. I mean, what a privilege that was. So we got a great education in that barn. And the barn education was Saturday and Sunday, 2 full days. And then there was a satellite clinic 1 day a week. And that was in different areas. That was only an hour from my house. So that was nice. That was every Monday. And so I had Saturday, Sunday, Monday for massage.
All right. Good little in a row there like that. Was that a consistent thing, or did the satellite stuff come at some midway later point in the program?
No, that was a consistent thing. When I signed up, there was a satellite because that had to be 1 full day so we could get our hours in. And Sandy didn't instruct there. There was a different instructor there. Yeah, but Sandy instructed. It was before Luke. And so Sandy was our main instructor. And it was before Sandy had her college education even. So she was going to school at that time.
Wow.
So yeah, she had her plate full also.
I bet. Gosh. All right. Can you kind of describe? You said whenever that you got there, you thought to yourself, how is anyone ever going to respect me if I tell them I went to school in a barn? Did that ever
Yes.
present itself as a problem for you, Dolly?
No, but when I initially pulled up, I thought, what did I sign up for? I just, well, then it started out too. I drove there the night before so I could find it, because it was a big drive and we had to be there at 8 in the morning. And I'm not the morning cherub, so I wanted to get there the night before to scope it out. But so I had reservations at this little motel. I pulled up at the motel. It was dark and it was all outside entrance doors. And there were all men sitting outside in chairs, smoking, drinking beers, laughing. I thought, oh my word. The lady came out and she said, "We have a construction crew that came in and I don't think you're going to want to stay here tonight. So I've called the Best Western downtown and they have a room for you." And I thought that was very nice of her.
Yeah.
So I drove downtown. The only room they had for me was the bridal suite. So I had rose petals in my bed.
Already prepared.
What an experience. And then the next day I drive and I see the barn. I think, this is my new life. This is so weird for me. Yeah.
I bet it was quite different than what your husband experienced going through chiropractic.
Yes, it was a little bit different. A little bit different.
But another thing that's really standing out to me is this. I mean, like, that's a solid commitment to make 3 days in a row, a 3 hour drive from your home to be there. Did you stay overnight in Lapeer for those 3 days in a row, or were you back and forth each day?
Well, at first, and then Sandy hooked us up with different people we could stay with if we chose to.
Mhm.
And that was really nice. I did that for a while, but it was a challenging year. The week after I started massage school, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer and he passed away the week before I graduated. So near the end, I would drive home Saturday night because my mom and sister would spend the day with him. I would be at the hospital with him. I would get there like at 8 o'clock at night, and then I would leave at 4 in the morning. But I would sit with him at night and I would study by the light in the hallway in the hospital, but I would hold his hand and he would sleep. So yeah, that was a commitment driving back and forth, but I did it. And, it's just something that you do. And I'm grateful that I could do it, that I was able to do it. And my husband was supportive. I couldn't have done it without the support of him watching the kids. And then in the month of November, we had a fire at our house and we're displaced. We had to live in a hotel with these kids, had to farm our dog out. And I still was driving back and forth. This time I had to carry my massage table in the hotel to store it, at night. So it was a very challenging year, but I was committed. I'd paid that money. I had the support of my family. And so this is what you do.
I can't imagine. Well, first of all, I can't imagine going through all of that and also an entry-level program to learn a new trade, a new skill going into a career like that, Dolly. I'm also hearing earlier in your story you said that you're kind of this overachiever. You have more to do, you want to be the one to do it. And it sounds like your first steps into massage therapy really have laid this groundwork for this dedication that you have evident throughout your career in that biography I read earlier.
Yeah, the profession has been so good to me right from the get-go. Like I had great instructors. Kathy Pahalski is another name I'd like to mention. She was one of the instructors at Health Enrichment. She's still teaching now. Many of the states require implicit bias. She has the best implicit bias class, and I've taken several, but I learn each time because she kind of lets the class lead the way and guides us. And so it's different every time. But she was one of my instructors at Health Enrichment also, who was excellent. But yeah, Sandy hired really good people that really knew what they were doing to teach. So
Gotcha. Can we linger just a little bit more on this school setting? You mentioned this was kind of pre-textbooks, especially for Sandy. She hadn't written her text yet.
right.
She was using pamphlets as instructional material.
Yes, that she wrote. She wrote these herself. I mean, printed them. Can you imagine all the work that she did for all of us? And our classes on weekend were all the satellite ones came together. So it was a big class back then. And then the satellite classes were all smaller because we were from all over. But yeah, Sandy did a lot of work that time and we had a lot of hands-on.
Yeah, I'm wondering how easy it would have been because today it's not hard to get printed material. I'm wondering if that was a little bit more challenging at the time, or if you have any awareness of that, Dolly, how easy that might have been for Sandy, especially if she is in a more rural environment at the time.
Well, if you know Sandy, she likes to do things her way. She was going to teach what she wanted us to learn and she thought we should learn. So she gave us the best of herself without that. And because she'd done her research, she knew what she was doing. It was, like I said, it was a great entry-level education. And I sat there in the class thinking, there are no spiders in this barn. There are no mice in this barn. It wasn't the barn setting that I thought when I saw it from the outside.
Gotcha. All right. Just a archival question. Do you still have any of those pamphlets that were used for instruction, Dolly?
I don't, just because I moved. I wish I did. I wish I would have. I kept them for years in a big notebook. We had this huge 5-inch binder or whatever that we kept them all in and with all of our notes. And yeah, I kept that for years after I was in practice. I kept it along with being a member of the AMTA early on. We used to get a book. It looked like a telephone book, but it had all the members of AMTA's contact information in there. So I kept all those, but of course, we only had how many members at that time?
Right.
But maybe 10,000 or something like that. So that was easy. I can't imagine what that book would look like now. But yeah, so I kept all that for so many years. But then once we moved, I thought I can't move all this stuff with me.
I fear that's a common story, so don't beat yourself up too much about that,
I
Dolly.
know, but oh, I wish I would have. I wish I would have.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about other instructors. Were there other tools or any quirks, memories, surprises other than the venue being a barn that really stick out to you?
Some of the educators that she brought in to teach us, there was a doctor that she brought in that we learned Russian massage from. And that was some deep vibrating. And I've never seen a class like that before, but it was so beneficial. I used it in my practice a lot. But some of the people that Sandy would bring in, she had great contacts. And like I said, Dr. Chaitau with fibromyalgia.
Hmm.
I mean, that was a great learning lesson.
All right. Awesome. I just thought of another question that came to my head. This is all pre-regulation for the state of Michigan, right? Is there anywhere that curriculum guidelines may have been provided for Sandy?
I don't know. I don't know. This pre-regulation, so when I moved back home to
Mhm.
practice, I was the only one in my area who had a formal education. There were other people practicing, but they didn't have a formal education. In fact, one of them came to me for a massage, and I did skin rolling. And she said, "Oh, that feels so good. What is that?" And so I said, "Well, it's a feel-good stroke for you, but it's an evaluation stroke for me." And I explained it. And so I asked her where she got, oh, and then she asked me to work her varicose veins. And I said that was a contraindication with my education, and she didn't know the word contraindication. So then I asked her where she went to school, and she said, I'm so naive, I was brand new. And she said, "Well, I've never been to school. I just, wherever I go, I get a massage. I learn from other therapists." Well, then a client came to me and said, "Oh, it's so great you taught so and so massage. She advertised in the paper that she trained under you." I thought, oh no. So I did call her. We had lunch. I said, "I'm not trained to train you. You can't advertise that you trained under me." But I did learn skin rolling, she said. So, I mean, it was a compliment, but yet I felt violated. Like I thought, I'm not trained to train you. And so I didn't really want that out there, but it was a nice conversation. It wasn't animosity or any of that, but I it was kind of a threat. And then I made an appointment with someone who did massage at the Y, so I could get a massage. I made an appointment with the receptionist. The therapist called me back herself and said, "I feel very intimidated. You have a formal education. I don't. I don't feel comfortable working with you."
Hmm.
And I said, "Oh, I'm not here to judge. I just really need a massage." And she refused to see me.
Wow.
I know. And I'm not that person, you know? So it's like, okay,
Well, especially not if there's an absence of regulation and set standards, right, Dolly? I'm
right,
sure we'll talk about the importance of standards later on in our conversation, but I mean, yeah, like you said, you're not here to judge, especially not if there's an absence of anywhere to go for that, right?
right. And that's why, and Sandy encouraged us to join, at the time was AMTA. I don't know if ABMP was in business at the time, but she encouraged us to join a professional organization. And I did that for credibility. I thought, I need to be credible. I want people to know that I'm qualified. And then when National Cert became available, I also did that and stepped up because that was very important because there wasn't regulation.
Also, if we can delve just a little bit about history of AMTA here, so it sounds like you were introduced to at least the idea of joining a professional association through your entry level with Sandy. Were they doing student memberships at the time?
Yes, I was a student member first and then a professional member once I graduated.
Okay, so that kind of institutionalization was already set up there within the
Yes.
AMTA. Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Interesting.
But it was interesting, and I don't know if anybody else has shared this with you, but you had to take a test before, a written and a practical to join AMTA.
That sounds complicated for a national organization to pull off practical examinations for membership.
Well, we had volunteers doing the practical, and of course, you know me, I volunteered to be a tester. And so, because they had different regions at the time, and so in my region, I was going to be a tester. I always say when you volunteer, don't be afraid to make mistakes because I made a big one. My first time I was a tester, it was a big class, and I didn't know who were the testers and who were the people there to take the test. So I asked if all the testers could be on one side of the room and the testees on the other. All the men got up and stood on one side of the room, and I thought, it's all guys taking this test. But then it dawned on me, I said testes. And so, yeah, that was my mistake. So I learned real quick as a tester to watch my words.
It sounds like they took that quite literally, though,
They
Dolly.
did, I know, but you talk about embarrassing, Kirby. I mean, I could have just died.
Oh.
But yeah, so we had qualified testers. You know, I'd been in practice for a while first before I did that. So that's how the practicals were administered.
Hmm.
And we had guidelines to go by.
Sure. When you got out of entry level, though, it sounds like the plan was to work kind of in tandem with your husband's chiropractic practice.
Yes.
Okay. And that worked well for a while, you said, but it worked even better kind of having your own practices.
Well, and we practiced in the same office, and then my practice grew so much that we hired other massage therapists. So, and then his practice grew, so we had an associate doctor. So we really grew a great practice. And, I say we took care of, well, in Sandy's class, we had some successful, very successful people that graduated with me. And we took care of some very important people. Like one of the graduates took care of a professional bicycle racing team. Another one took care of like wrestlers, pro wrestlers. And then my husband and I we worked with a farm club for an NHL team, a hockey team.
Hmm.
And then they would get moved up to the professional team. So we'd get tickets sometimes to those games. But one of my clients actually has 5 Stanley Cup rings, I'm very proud to say. And then we also worked rock concerts, and my kids were so spoiled because they could go backstage passes with these amazing rock bands. But yet, I never want to forget the people that we did outreach work for, people who couldn't afford the massage. Yeah, maybe we worked with some of the elite, but they weren't the only ones that needed and deserved massage. So we always did outreach work too. And I encourage that for every practitioner, that sometimes that's the richest reward you get. It's more important than money at times. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of I don't want to say that my clients receive different treatment based on who they are, but there's this different feeling whenever that it's a client that, isn't as regular, can't be there as often as some of the others, right?
Right. And my youngest client was 2 days old. A little girl was born with severe torticollis,
Mhm.
and her dad happened to be a chiropractor, and he would adjust her and I would massage her. She's now a college graduate, and she's absolutely healthy. But 2 days old, I thought, oh my word. And my eldest client was 102. When my office staff brought her intake form back to me to read before I went up front to get her, I thought, oh my word, I wonder if she has a walker. Can she make it back to my room? I went up front and called her name, and she jumped up. She had her makeup on. She had a little jean skirt on. She almost beat me back to the room. And when we went over her intake, I said, what would you like from the massage today? She says, honey, I'm 102. Life's winding down. I haven't tried this yet. I'm trying to get everything in. She became a regular, and she died in her sleep at 106.
Oh, wow.
But what an amazing lady. And the first massage I offered to help her off the table when we were finished, and she goes, honey, I'm old, but I'm not dead yet. So she got herself off the table, drove herself home. Yeah, wonderful experience.
Yeah, well, and also what a great attitude to have at the time, trying to
Oh, I know.
your massage practice was still going on in the same office as the chiropractic practice.
Yes, yes.
Was there ever a point where those two completely separated?
Not really. We shared the same office staff. Like we didn't, like I said, sometimes we would see each other's patient, like a patient would see both the doctor and myself. And sometimes he'd have his patients, and some clients just came to see me for a massage. We'd practice in the same space. We had a big enough building, like I said, where we had other practitioners in there with us, and everybody had their own space. But we share the same staff, which was nice.
Probably helpful.
Very helpful.
Let's shift into some questions about like leadership, business, education, if that's all right with you, Dolly.
Sure.
Have you ever served on Michigan's regulatory agency?
No, I
Okay.
have not.
So largely the work that you've done has been with the professional organizations.
Yes.
Can you kind of lay out a timeline and then really delve deep into it? It sounds like AMTA was the first introduction that you had with that. Did you start with the Michigan chapter?
I did start with the Michigan chapter, and there again, I probably would not have volunteered had I not been asked to volunteer. And I was asked to be it was called the treasurer at the time.
Mhm.
And I didn't even like to balance my own checkbook. I thought, oh Lord, why this position, But okay, I'll do it if you need help. And we had units at that time. And so I was part of the Michigan unit because on the west side of the state, we didn't have near as many massage therapists as on the east side of the state by Detroit and all that.
Mhm.
There were very few of us on the west side of the state. So we had our own little unit over there, and I was the financial person. And that's how I started. And then I got involved in government relations. And that was my passion, to see things done right.
Mm.
So I first started volunteering on the government relations committee and then eventually became the chair of that committee. I really enjoyed that part.
One thing that I really want to touch on before we go much further, Dolly, is this idea of geography. Michigan is particularly unique because of that Upper Peninsula, right?
Yes, yes.
Do you have any sense of like what was going on in terms of massage therapy and body work in the Upper Peninsula?
It was very hard for them to get education. Also, some of them would go to Wisconsin because it was closer to Wisconsin than coming back across the bridge and going to a school in Michigan. But Sandy also had a satellite in Traverse City, Michigan, which is north. It's still in the western side, but it's still north. So some of them could come to Traverse City should they choose to. But
Mm.
yeah, it's a challenge because the Upper Peninsula isn't real populated, not like the east side. The west side is less populated than the east side, but still much more than in the UP. We call them the Upers.
Well, and that's another question I kind of want to ask you. Any cultural differences between those two parts of the state that you're aware of that you could speak to, Dolly?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We go north to have pasties. We don't have pasties in the lower we're the trolls. We live below the bridge, so we're the trolls. So we have to go north to get really good pasties. Do you know what a pasty is?
No, catch me learning, Dolly.
Okay, it's like a pie crust, but it has like rutabagas and meat in it, and it's so good. Some people put gravy over it. I prefer it just like that. But it's a little handheld sandwich,
Uh-huh.
but it's made like with a pie crust with really good healthy filling in it.
Hmm.
So, and then I think there's more of an accent north, more of the Canadian Minnesota type accent
Sure.
a little bit, but still the warm Midwestern friendliness, still that. But I think that they're more self-sufficient because they need to be because they don't have all the conveniences that we do in the lower part of Michigan.
Hmm.
They drive further to go to the grocery store. They work harder, they don't have as many job opportunities as we do. So, yeah, it is a different culture.
Okay. I guess that makes sense too, with it being less densely populated.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that there's a bridge that connects the upper and lower parts of the state.
Oh, it's called the Mackinac Bridge, and it can get scary when it's windy. Sometimes they have to close it down
Mm.
because the wind can blow cars off. It blew a little Yugo off years ago when they made the Yugo car.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes when we've gone across it, they'll pair us up with a semi because the semi truck will block the wind. Yeah, it can be a little scary.
Gotcha. And then you mentioned Traverse City, Michigan. Are they the ones with like a cherry festival or something like that?
Yes, and my husband first practiced in Traverse City when he was out of chiropractic college. Right away, somebody hired him there. And I stayed behind in Davenport, Iowa, because one of our daughters was a gymnast and she had an opportunity to perform at the World's Fair. So I stayed in Iowa for a month or 6 weeks while he went to Traverse City to practice, and he got a home for us and all that. So that was kind of nice. But we used to say half your pay is a view of the bay when you're in Traverse City. But it's a beautiful place to live. You're surrounded by water, which we were in Muskegon also because we're right by Lake Michigan and other lakes. But yeah, half your bay pay is the view of the bay in Traverse City. And Traverse City becomes so populated in the summer, but in the wintertime, no, not so much.
Hmm. All right. Thank you for going into this a little bit more on the geographical and I mean, like this is the cultural stuff that we're not quite as aware of, but just has to seep in at some point into our collective story and as our self as practitioner. I love these conversations like this. state pride and like stuff that's really unique to our geographical locations. I could eat that stuff up, Dolly. So thank you.
Well, and I love that you knew about the cherry festival because that is huge there and they grow so many cherries. And when I was a young kid, my dad would take us cherry picking,
Mhm.
and we got to pick cherries and blueberries for money for our school clothes or whatever. So, yeah, that's what we did in Michigan.
I love it. So thank you again for sharing that. Also, now I'm going to ask for forgiveness. Sometimes I get Michigan and Minnesota confused.
That's okay. I have great ties. I have family in Minnesota, and I used to go there as a teenager to car hop at a drive-in restaurant every summer.
Mhm.
And my husband and I just sold our lakefront property in Minnesota 2 years ago. So I can talk Minnesota because my aunt would say, "Did you eat your moose meat yet?" And it's like, I don't eat moose meat, Agnes. But yeah, yeah.
Moose meat. I think I'd stick with pasties myself.
Oh, yeah. But Minnesota has like Freddie's lefse, which is the potato bread that's really good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm wondering also how much of this, since we're talking about food, Dolly, I'm just going to go in on this. We're kind of off-roading again. I'm wondering some of the stuff that you're mentioning, I feel like it just has to be a lineage of like immigration food. Does that sound right to you?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think there's something they eat in Minnesota that I thought was just horrible. I think it's called luke fish. It's fish it's in like a gel and it's like, oh no, I don't want to eat that. But yeah, and I think that must come from their lineage.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Kind of to get us back into the discussion, though, I find that treasurer, financial officer is really one of those hard positions to fill. And you mentioned some you don't even like to like handle your own. I mean, like, well, you had also, moving to Iowa, you also had those huge challenges as well at the time.
Right.
Any stories or triumphs with the Michigan chapter in your time as treasurer that really stick out to you?
There was a time, and this is totally Sandy Fritz. She came to the west side of Michigan to teach a class to us, which we were so thankful for. And I wrote the check and I'm balancing the checkbook month after month and Sandy hasn't cashed the check for, what we owed her to teach. And so I called her and I said, "Sandy, you've not cashed this check." And Sandy says, "Dolly, if I haven't cashed it by now, evidently I didn't need it. So I don't know where it's at. Consider it a donation to the chapter." I mean, isn't that awesome? I mean, that was the highlight of my thing. But it also taught me later because we ran our own business and I paid the quarterly taxes for our business. I did all the bookkeeping myself. So that was a great foundation to start to have was that financial thing. But yeah,
So,
really helped me in life.
were there many volunteers and we can talk about this, well, you kind of already mentioned it earlier, nationwide. They were able to publish like directories because
Mhm.
less members, less volunteers, I would assume is the trade-off there. But were there many chapter volunteers with the Michigan chapter at the time, Dolly?
Oh, we did. Yeah, we did. It wasn't always the same people. There were always a lot of volunteers. And we didn't, even if we practiced by each other, we didn't consider each other competition. We were colleagues. We helped each other,
Good.
shared intake forms, things like that. So, yeah, there was a real camaraderie back then. Really nice.
That's important. Have you seen that kind of diminish? I just have to
Yes,
ask. Okay.
yes.
All right.
Not, I wouldn't say in Michigan so much, but here in California, it's much more diverse. Everybody's just kind of out there on their own.
Hmm.
So the California chapter has been really good about trying to bring people back together. So they've really worked hard to rebuild, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha. All right. And then it also sounds like, but what you really fell in love with volunteering with AMTA was the government relations
I
aspect
did.
and that work as chair. I can't help but think that perhaps your interest in criminal justice also plays some part in your interest in government relations.
I never thought about that, Kirby, but it probably did. I really enjoyed going to the National State Legislatures Conference. It's an annual conference, and legislators and their staff come from all over the United States, and some other foreign countries also show up because they want to learn about our government. And they have classes, and we have a booth there. And legislators come up to our booth and say, what should we know? Well, we used to have a map of the United States, and the red ones were the ones that were pending regulations. The gold ones were regulated. The white ones were unregulated. Well, it was mostly, when we put that up there, it was mostly all white. Nobody was regulated. And to see those states come and change colors, and the legislator would come and they'd say, like Minnesota would say, well, how come we're white and Michigan's gold and Wisconsin's gold? Well, let me talk to you, and so, but they would ask about what should they know about our education? What should be a minimum standard? What do we really want? And so it was really important to be at those meetings to share with them what we need and what we're all about.
Yeah. I'm wondering sometimes in terms of massage political conversations these days, we can find quite a bit of division right now, is my sense. Do you find that there was less of that at that time with this, more states jumping on board with regulation? Or can you speak to that at all, Dolly?
Yeah, I think there was more commonality back then because people were so interested in being regulated. And once, say, regulation passed, it would take a while to get the rules and regs in place because every state had something they wanted a little bit different. But at first, it was pretty much all the same amount of hours required, where now it's different in so many states. But pretty much it was a lot of similar things back then.
And I'm wondering if we can talk just briefly, because we're kind of circling this place. As someone who was practicing before regulation in Michigan, can you kind of talk about that transition to becoming licensed in Michigan?
Yeah, I think we gained more respect with the healthcare because we had a physical therapist that worked at a hospital come to our office one time, and she said, I just wanted to meet the massage therapists and the doctors here because people that come to me for PT that have been patients and clients in this office seem to get better quicker. I want to know what you guys are doing. So I think, it's how you build your reputation. If you're qualified and you're doing what you should be doing, it comes back to you. So I think we gained a lot of respect by that, especially in the healthcare system. That really made a difference for us. And other practitioners, I think, respected us once they knew, especially massage therapists, that we're not about manual manipulation. We don't want to take a PT's place or a chiropractor. We're not qualified for those positions. And as long as we stay in our lane, we'll keep that respect. So I think once they learn that we want to do what we're trained to do, then that respect came.
We've also been talking a little bit about our good friends in Minnesota. It sounds like the push for regulation there has been going on for a very long time. I know that they had legislation introduced last year and that may still be on the books, a potential for this year. Any insights on that? I mean, I know you're for Michigan, Dolly, but any insights or anything like that?
Not really, but years ago we had a state very similar to Minnesota that we worked and worked and worked with, and it was Indiana. But there was a legislator there that was going to beat it down every single time, every single time. And there was just nothing that could be done until that person was done serving. So, and I don't know if that's the case in Minnesota. I'm not that familiar with it, but it could be part of it. I don't know. I don't know why it's not passing in Minnesota. I really don't.
Yeah, and we'll also put a pin in that. But tell me anything that really sticks out from your time working with GR. And did the chapter GR position lead you into work with national with AMTA?
A big thing that I was really proud of is that when we went for our hearing for regulation in Michigan, the government relations chair from the Michigan Association of Chiropractors showed up to support us. I mean, that said a lot when their government relation person showed up to support the massage therapist. I mean, that was huge for me. I just couldn't thank him enough. So that was really nice. So that stood out a lot. But just to see the change and how it's grown over the years, and because when I started out, there was very little regulation. And just to see, and then sometimes it wasn't licensure, it would just be some cities. We used to attend the League of Cities meetings because the states weren't regulated. So the cities had ordinances and oh, that was a mess. So I've seen such positive change that, yeah, throughout.
So was that mainly like the large focus of your work as GR with Michigan was the state licensure aspect?
Yes, yeah. And it started out, there was just Irene's myomassology and her daughter Kathy Gothier Skuback now. They started it first. They put in their own money. They started the movement. And then the organizations AMTA and ABMP got involved before it finally went through. But I mean, those two were initial. They started it. I give them a lot of credit.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
that's kind of one of those little pieces of history that kind of gets forgotten or not shared and passed down. So thanks for acknowledging it.
The Society of Massage Archives invites you to join us for a virtual book club and discussion circle, a monthly 90-minute virtual deep dive into Dr. Patricia Benjamin's book, The Emergence of the Massage Therapy Profession in North America, A History in Archetypes. This isn't your typical book club. It's a conversation where we'll read the emergence chapter by chapter, reflect on the stories, struggles, and triumphs that shaped our profession, and explore how the past informs our current and future circumstances. Discussion circles are moderated by SOMA's Executive Board of Directors, with special guest hosts and Q&A sessions with the author, Dr. Benjamin. Registrants will receive access to the ebook format courtesy of Sutherland Chan School of Massage in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Virtual meetings will be held on the second Monday of each month at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 p.m. Mountain, and 3:30 p.m. Pacific. Visit our social media on Facebook and Instagram, or our website at societyofmassagearchives.org to learn more and get registered today. We'll see you soon.
What came next after your work with government relations?
I ran for the National Board of Directors, I think. I served as a unit, but I never really served as a chapter president or any of that. So I ran for the National Board of Directors. At the time, we were a mirror board for the Massage Therapy Foundation. So we were not only Board of Directors, we were Board of Trustees. And that was interesting.
Speak a little bit more about that, Dolly, if you can.
Well, it's just, we had our little separate meetings, and business for the association was one way, business for the trustees was the other. We kept them separate, but it was the same board that made the decisions for both organizations.
Interesting. And that's not the case today, right?
No, it's not the case today. It has since changed, which is a good change.
For sure.
Yeah.
Anything from that work that really sticks out to you?
I learned a lot about research being on the board of trustees that I would not have known if I just would have remained on the board of directors. I have so much respect for research and so much more knowledge than I would have. I mean, I didn't know the difference between a simile and metaphor, none of that stuff, So a meta-analysis and all these words, I didn't know what they meant. And now I have a total respect. And I worked with Massage Therapy Foundation this past year as chair of their granting committee. And their grants that they give out are just amazing, that the people that they can serve.
All right. Can you share a little bit? We're kind of jumping ahead a little bit in the timeline, but can you share a little bit more about your former work with being on the board of trustees for MTF to serving in the capacity for the grants?
Okay. Well, and then as we grew and we were separate, then again later on, I was on the board of trustees as a trustee. So that was nice. And I was asked to be on the granting committee at that time. And they're community service grants, and they were $5,000. And they gave away, it depended on how much money they had at that time, how many, they could give away 3, they could give away 5. It depended on how much money they had. And you had grants from applications from all over, international, Rwanda, Nigeria. It's amazing. So then being part of that committee, you have to figure out what the dollar difference is. How much is our $5,000 worth to them? And so it's a lot of work, but you read the grant applications and they'll be for burn victims, for somebody caring for people with cancer, for veterans, post-traumatic stress. They can be for a variety of things. Children whose parents are incarcerated. It runs the whole gamut. Breast cancer people. Yeah, it's amazing. And this year, the Massage Therapy Foundation has changed it to a $20,000 grant rather than the $5,000 grants because they think it'll be a different demographic and it won't be as many grants. It may be 1 or 2, depending on the finances at that time. but it hopefully will give us some background for additional research with the population that receives this grant.
Interesting. I'm going to be vulnerable and share a little bit of ignorance, Dolly, when it comes to the MTF. Are these grants being awarded specifically just for research into massage?
No, sometimes MTF doesn't really get anything research-wise back from that. Sometimes it'll give them something to look into that they can research or whatever. Other times it's a community service grant. So we're serving the community, putting back, helping the community.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, because I knew that, yeah, community service was one of the pillars for MTF, but yeah, just ignorance of how that all worked and what that might entail. Thank you for shedding a little bit of light there.
Sure.
How did you eventually get to AMTA president in that case? Were there steps between being on the board of directors to working your way there?
There were, yeah. When I started out volunteering, it was never my goal. It just sort of happened. It was a progression. And what an amazing year my presidency was. You get to go to different chapter meetings and see how chapters are run. And it's you go to their conferences, and each of them are different. Each of them have, such wonderful things that they share. And it's like, if we could get them all together and each of them share what they share, because they're all so different and they all have their own unique challenges. And so to be there as president to help them to grow and to support them with what they're already doing is amazing. To me, that was one of the highlights of my presidency, was visiting the different chapters and sitting down with the leaders and saying, what can National do more to help you? Or what are we doing right? That was really nice to connect with the chapter members, because their voices are so important. That's our foundation. That's National's foundation, is those chapter leaders.
Yeah, for sure. So this is 2017 to 2018 that your
Yes.
term as president for AMTA National. Well, I want to ask you, not to, name a favorite or anything like that, but is there any particular memory from those chapter visits that just really sticks with you to this day?
I think Rhode Island. They're tiny, but they're mighty. Their conference drew from other states, which I thought was amazing. It was a big conference. Like I say, and I was real impressed where they had a booth set up for people to get their MPI numbers. And so many people want to bill insurance, but they don't know how to do it. They don't have that number. They had someone there to help you get that number and explain the importance of it. I think that was the only chapter where I had seen that, and I thought, that's a really great idea. That's innovative. Yeah. And they introduced me to all the things in Rhode Island, like we were talking about food. They have coffee syrup rather than chocolate syrup. They have Dell's lemonade, and they got me a Dell's lemonade, which is like a slushy. And I asked for a straw, and the serviceman said, "You're not from here." And I said, "How'd you know?" He says, "You asked for a straw. We don't use straws with our slushy. We just slug them down." So, it was just amazing, some of those culture things. But yeah, and then there was an incident then they had a dinner dance afterwards. And some young man came up and asked me to dance to Michael Jackson's Beat It, of all songs. I lasted the whole song. We had so much fun. An hour later, an ambulance was taking that young man away. He'd had an allergic reaction to shellfish that he'd eaten, evidently. We kept tabs on him, and finally they released him a little after midnight. And the hotel said they had no more rooms, and he had driven there. So they had no more rooms. And I said, I leave at 4 a.m. to go back to the airport. My room is all made up clean. He can have my room. And so he was so grateful. He was so drugged up, by the time he came back. But they gave him my room. I sat in the lobby. It was over Halloween weekend or something, because people were coming in their costumes. So I got to see a lot sitting in that lobby for 4 hours. It was actually kind of fun. But anyway, I got the nicest email from him later. And it was so funny, because he said, "Little did I know that when I danced with you to Beat It, that I would end up in your bed that night." So, that's the sort of sense of humor. And but I was glad that he was feeling better, that he had that sense of humor. So That's something that sticks out. That chapter always has a special place in my heart.
I would
Yeah.
imagine so. Let's talk anything really transitional for AMTA National during your term as president that sticks out, Dolly? Anything that wasn't accomplished that, you're still tracking or watching or hopeful for?
Oh, just the growth has been amazing. Gosh, I don't know if there's one thing that just sticks out, but it's just how much we've grown and how many more benefits we have than we used to. They do put the money back into the profession, which I totally appreciate. And I like the findamassagetherapist.org. We didn't used to have that. I think that's a great benefit.
That's kind of like a grandchild of perhaps the directories, maybe.
Yeah. And I was never on there, and people say, "Why aren't you on there?" It's because I have a waiting list practice. My clients get mad if they see me on there drawing more, they're going to be really upset. So I never participated in it, and I always felt bad that I didn't because it is a great thing. But when you have a waiting list practice, you're so blessed. You want to take care of the people that you have and not make them wait any longer. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would assume that after that term ended in 18, you would then go on to serve as immediate past president.
Immediate past president. Yeah. And that's learning. You support the PE coming in, the president-elect coming in, and you support them and help them to grow in their role the best you can. And of course, you also support the president too. But basically, you're there to make sure the PE understands different things and helps them.
I think this is just coming to me, Dolly. It's kind of hard for anyone like me to imagine, but I'm sure that there must be like special bonds between those three positions and the individuals that serve at the same time together in those positions. Anything maybe you want to share about that? The people that were immediate past president while you were PE, those three positions during your time there with AMTA National.
You know what? They're forever bonds because I'm still so close to and we still all have that ultimate trust with each other. It's amazing because, there's a lot of confidentiality that you don't share and can't share and don't want to share, basically. But the three of you know that and you keep that within you. And so there's that trust that's there that you can trust that person with anything then, and in the respect because we've all earned each other's deepest respect and trust. And so there's a forever bond there. We still all communicate. I mean, look how many years ago that's been. But if we go to a meeting together, who do we sit by? We sit by each other because we can't wait to see each other.
Are there much other opportunities for you guys to meet in person outside of like national convention? I would assume is the best opportunity.
Yeah, I just met recently with Christopher Deary,
Hmm.
and Christopher and I were at the AIHM meeting, and that's for the integrative health medicine. And we were in Philadelphia for that at the Thomas Jefferson Institute meeting. And so I got to see Christopher Deary there, which was really nice. So there are different opportunities that we'll meet at different meetings. And I'll see Nancy Parambo. And Nancy Parambo was a president before my time, but we didn't serve as the three Ps together. But I will see Nancy Parambo in Palm Springs when we're at a HICPAC CPT meeting. So so there are the opportunities other than just with AMTA where we do get to see each other, which is always a bonus.
All right, awesome. Thanks for sharing those special insights that, not many of the rest of us have about, those bond and that trust really works together. I haven't asked you yet, how did the move from Michigan to California come about, Dolly?
Retirement, and we have family here. We knew my husband is a warm weather guy, so he wanted to retire where it's warm, where he could swim every day. So one of the requirements was the house had to have a pool. So, and we swim a lot, but it's been raining here for a week, which it never rains in Southern California. So we just don't know what to do. People here don't know how to drive in the rain. It's like they should move to Michigan. But
You've got a lot
yeah,
of practice there for that then.
I know. So that's how, and we have our youngest daughter and granddaughter are here. So when we were in Michigan, we got to watch our other grandchildren participate in their sports like track, basketball, football, that. They were boys. And our youngest granddaughter is in water polo here in California. So she's a senior this year. So we've been able to watch her in her sports, and that was our goal. We always wanted to support our kids and grandkids, especially if they were in sports. You want to be there and support them in that. So that was part of the reason here too, because our youngest daughter and granddaughter are here.
Those family ties are important.
They are important.
What time frame did the move to California? Were there other moves between there, or retirement? We think we're gonna just move straight
Yeah,
to
well, it was interesting because when my husband first started practice, it's like it was so successful. He said, I'm going to retire when I'm 55. Well, then it's when I'm 65. Well, then it kept getting pushed back. I think we moved here in 2018. So, yeah, it was after my presidency was finished. I think we came in the fall, or no, maybe December. It was late in the year.
Were you already in retirement yourself from massage therapy at that time, or did you?
No, we've sold the practice at the same time. So we sold the practice and the building. We own the building that we were in. I have a great chiropractor. You interview people, and this one might be good. This one, yeah, I don't know. But this one also took our staff, which that was important to us, and that was important. We wanted our patients taken care of. They were familiar with that staff, that our staff had been with us for years. So we had really good staff. And so it was important that we took care of them also. And so this person was willing to take the staff. That staff has now retired. But in massage therapist, he kept massage therapy in there. He's a great doctor. And so we felt really comfortable. So we sold the practice. We sold the building that we were in. We sold our home there. So it was a lot. It was a lot all at once. It was a lot.
I bet.
And do I miss it? Yes. I miss the beauty of the snow, but I don't miss shoveling and driving on icy roads and all that.
And a windy bridge.
Oh, the windy bridge. That is scary.
Okay. Do you get to visit back?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. The Michigan chapter has created a Dolly Wallace Scholarship Fund. So each year, the Michigan chapter gives away a weekend conference. They pay for a chapter member's conference and their room and their food. And it's in my scholarship. So they bring me back every year to award this scholarship. So I will be in Michigan in March. And then I get to visit family. I have an 88-year-old aunt that still lives on the family farm. So I get to visit my aunt and my other grandkids there. So that'll be nice.
What a dream. That sounds just incredibly awesome.
I'm so honored that they would create that scholarship. And it's not a memorial one. I'm still alive. I get to present the scholarship. I mean, when Michigan did that, I just thought that is amazing. It really touched my heart.
I can only imagine. And yeah, how special that it's not a memorial, that you're able to present in person. And I can't even imagine what that's like.
Oh,
Congratulations also, because yeah, I think that's awesome, Dolly.
it's just awesome. I don't know whose idea that was at the time, but what an amazing idea. So
Yeah.
it's each spring that I go back, usually in March or April. So that's so nice.
All right, cool. Well, and probably a pretty good time. Hopefully a lot of the snow is turned into meltwater
Yeah.
for that time.
Hopefully.
Did you ever like transition your license to the California voluntary certification?
No,
Okay.
no, I haven't. I'm still debating. Some areas require it here and some areas don't. And there's a push for licensure now. So I'm kind of just waiting to see how that's going to go. I think it's going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. This is going to be a process.
Are you tracking California's?
I attend their meetings, and then they also have other meetings regarding updating on the process of the licensure. They've been in Sacramento. They had a legislative day where they did massage on legislators and their staff and had meetings. And so, yeah, I track that. So it's progressing. They have a great lobbyist right now. So it's moving forward. But like I say, I've been through this process before. It's not going to happen overnight.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Keep us posted, Dolly.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. It is because it's a whole different ball game out here. I mean, right down the street from me, there's a place called Joyful Massage. I think, who would name their place Joyful Massage? But my neighbors tell me it's a legitimate place. I've not been inside, because they're open just really weird hours. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's California.
Could be anything. Who knows?
It could, I don't know. I hope for the best and we'll cope with the rest, right?
There you go. I mean, I think a lot of Americans are living that way these days.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Yeah.
Let me ask you, Dolly, one thing that I neglected that I read from your bio, I haven't asked you about the work with Massage Envy. Talk to me about that. How did that come about? What time frame are we looking at? And
Oh
anything?
gosh, it was probably 2017 that it probably happened. There were three women that were going to be on the Dr. Oz show that were victims at Massage Envy, and they were sexually assaulted. Dr. Oz asked if I would come to his show. He was having the victims on the show. I hate to say victims, I want to say survivors, but he was having them on the show to tell their story and what happened to them and how they reacted. They all reacted differently. One of them went home and didn't say anything for a while. Another one called the police, and another one just said something at the front desk and just walked out. So each of them had their own story, and it happened at different locations. It wasn't all one location, one person, whatever. And so they all had their own story. So Dr. Oz had them tell their story. But he invited me to come. He flew me to New York to say, how do you find a legitimate massage therapist? How can we stop this? What are you doing? And all this. And so it was really interesting when I got there. They kept me separate. They put me in a different green room than the other three because they expected tension. I'm not confrontational, but anyway, and I don't know if those women were or what he thought, but anyway, they kept us separate. And then they brought me out in a waiting room where I could see a television, and there were a couple men standing there. And I thought, at first, I thought the men were just workers watching these women be interviewed by Dr. Oz, because he was on a set and I was just watching on this television. So were these two men. And then it dawned on me the two men were husbands of these women telling the stories. And then I got tears. I thought, boy, this has to be hard for these guys to watch this. And then I had my interview, which was a very good interview. I mean, Dr. Oz was very fair, very supportive, wanted the word out there. And then once we were finished with the interview, they took me off first and they couldn't get my mic off. They hook it up underneath your shirt and over your shoulder, all that. So it got hooked and they couldn't get it off, and they were bringing the other three women out. One of the women came up to me and said, I owe you and your colleagues an apology. I said, why? She said, I'm sure I've hurt many male practices by coming out against this man. And it's not all men. But she said, I want to apologize. It's like, please don't apologize. I'm glad you came forward. We don't want these people in our profession either. Dr. Oz just stood there and smiled because the four of us walked out together saying, we stand united. We don't want these people in our practice. So that was a really cool thing that happened. So then because of that, Massage Envy had this task force set up. What can we do better to let the client feel safe, to know to report, how to report, whatever. So I was asked to be a part of that. There were also people from their staff that were there. There was also a survivor that was there. So we were all, and a couple franchise owners were there because it happened at different franchises. And so we were all part of this task force. And together with all of our input, they had printed literature, they had signs on their door, they made a safer environment, one more communicative for their clients. So Massage Envy really stepped it up. I give them a lot of credit for that.
Okay. All right. Was Massage Envy like ever on your radar before then?
No.
Gosh, what an interesting story you shared there, Dolly. I'm going to have to try and see if I can find a video of that Dr. Oz segment because
Yeah.
I had no idea. So thank you for sharing that, Dolly. I look forward to trying to find that.
It's interesting, they tell you to bring two changes of clothing. And so I had a red blazer because, red, we have to wear red. And then I also had something else, I think it was black and white. And so anyway, when they interviewed me, and then when you pull up, you have to go through security before they take you in the building where the filming is. And then they said, oh, can't wear the red blazer because one of the survivors has her attorney with her, and she has a red blazer on. So I wore my black and white. So it's really, and then they do your hair and your makeup, but basically they just fluff it up. But it was just real interesting to see how that all operated and how respectful that Dr. Oz really was of our profession. That I was impressed with that.
That's good. Yeah. All right. Let me ask you about the task force a little bit more. How regularly were you guys meeting? Do you know if this was like a one and done task force or if it lives on with Massage Envy in some capacity?
I don't know. I don't think it lives on anymore because I think most of the people involved in it are no longer a part of it. So I think they did their best work together. And then we had a few meetings after that. I think maybe we met a few times a year because they flew us into their home base, which was in Arizona, I believe.
Hmm.
So yeah, and we went to their office and their CEO was there. It was Joe Manaka at the time. And then Beth was later their CEO, and she was always there. So yeah, they had several of their people there.
Hmm. I'm wondering, do you feel any sort of impact that task force had in terms of like uh, making clients safer, more empowered, anything like that? Do you have any insights to that, Dolly?
Oh, I definitely think it made a difference. It made clients feel more empowered, let them know, because these women all said they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so, and Massage Envy, we went over different things. It's like, is this going to scare people? Are they going to think, oh, is something going on here? Why are you telling me this? But they did it in a way that was informative, not threatening, didn't make them feel like that because that was a concern of all of ours. It's like you're going to think, oh, what goes on here if they're telling me this? But no, it was to make sure they were empowered and that they knew what to do in case something did happen. So they did it right. They really listened to all of the input that was there from everyone there. I was impressed that they took a stand and they did something. They could have just think, oh, well, they were on television, we're done with it. It's an incident, it happens. But no, Massage Envy really cared, and they put together this task force.
Good. Well, and also thank you for serving on that as well, Dolly.
Yeah,
Among all of the other things.
I know.
Let's shift gears again if you don't mind. Let's talk about kind of some big picture stuff. When you look back from your entry level days to where we're at now, are there any major trends, movements, changes that stick out, turning points?
I think there are much more job opportunities now for massage therapists than there were back then. Much more respect for us. I like the idea that most states require continuing education. Not all states do, and I think that's really, really important. I used to be appalled that nurses didn't have to take continuing education back before I was even a massage therapist. So I, of course, would be appalled if massage therapists didn't have to. But yeah, I think that's really important that more and more states are requiring that. I think that's huge. And that we do have the opportunity, should you choose to be nationally board certified, because that is the highest credential for our profession, if that's what you choose. Not everybody chooses that, and that's okay. And I always say we're an elite group, but we're not elitist. We welcome everybody. So it's one of those things, if that's your choice, we welcome you.
I completely forgot to even talk to you about your work with NCBT&B so far, Dolly. Do you want to open that up for a discussion?
Well, sure. It was not on my radar. After I rolled off being president of National, I thought, I'm just going to skate. If they ask me to be on a committee or something, I'll help wherever needed. And then I started to get phone calls like NCB really needs some help. Would you be interested in running for their board? It's like, no, I don't think so. I've done my thing. No. After the third or fourth phone call from different people, I thought, you know what? If it really needs my help, I'm a helper. I can do it. Never thinking I would be president. I was just going to help. And there again, I ended up president. But it was a learning, growing experience. And back then, I think it was 6 years ago, we faced a lot of challenges. NCB was struggling at the time, and it's come back a long ways. It still has a long ways to go, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's so many changes needed to be made, and those changes were made, and they're still growing, but it was a lot of work. It was an uphill climb. The people were there willing to do the work, and that's what was important.
Okay. Anything really stick out in terms of those challenges and struggles that NCB was going through at the time? Are there still repercussions, ripple effects going on?
Yeah, I think that the not marketing the benefits of being nationally board certified, I think that wasn't real strong at the time, marketing the benefits of it. Finance-wise, they cut a lot of the budget needed to be cut and refocused. I think so. Some of it was financial, refocusing some of the dollars and concentrating more on the members. So the member experience had to improve, and it has, but it had to improve. The biggest challenge is that people are afraid of the exam. You know, none of us like to really take an exam. And then there were people who are nationally board certified, and for whatever reason, they let it lapse. And now they want it, but it's lapsed so long, they have to take the exam. It's like, oh man, I don't want to take the exam. Well, they offer study guides, practice exams, all that. So NCB is there to help you pass the test. They want you to pass the test. It's not that they don't want you in there, but they want to make sure you're qualified too to be nationally board certified. So, but do know that they do have the help out there should you choose to.
For sure. Now that I'm sitting here thinking just a little bit about it, Dolly, there was like a website revamp at the time, right?
Yes, there was a whole web, and that was a struggle for people, especially approved providers. It's like, how do we do this? Yes, there was a big website, a whole new database came in.
Yeah.
So not only the members struggled with it, the approved providers did, the staff did. But now, hopefully, the glitches have all been worked out, and they're going. I'm no longer on their board, but hopefully, they're going strong. And what I really like about them is that you reach out with a question and you get an answer. You know, you don't get the runaround. They're quick to answer. If they don't know the answer, they're going to research it and put you in the right direction. So I really appreciate that with their staff.
That's better than you can even get at your doctor's office sometimes.
Isn't that the truth? I know.
And then let me ask you, just because Michigan, Sandy, Siena Heights University, that is
Oh,
in partnership with NCBTMB, any insights or opinions you could share on that, Dolly?
no, I'm sad that that happened because that was so nice, and Sandy was so instrumental, I think, in forming that partnership and getting that ball rolling. And we're all sad to see it go. I don't know if it was their finances. I don't know the reason that Sienna, but yeah, it was a loss for us. It really was.
Any insights into if something like that, maybe not the word could, should resurface, be available? Do you think that was a really utilized benefit of board certification?
I do. I really do. And then people could go on and get their bachelor's if they chose. And I think Baker College originally started something like that too in Michigan. Baker College had a program, but then in Muskegon Community College had a massage program. But they were before their time, I think, and too early in the ball game where there weren't enough people seeking massage education at the time, I think. Now it's grown so much more that I do think it would benefit.
All right. Thanks for that little detour. Anything I didn't ask about NCB that I should have asked, Dolly?
I don't think so. I think you did good.
Okay, kind of back to big picture trends and shifts, how the public's perception of massage has changed. I know we talked a little bit about the survivors with massage envy a little bit, but anything else in terms of that?
I do think the public perception has changed, and I think a lot of that has to do with social media and marketing, good marketing. And I think regulation had a big part of it. Were legitimate. I think that has really, really helped in the public's mind for sure, especially because we work with all populations. Like I say, we work with children, we work with adults, we work with disabled. One of my clients was a little boy that was deprived of oxygen at birth, and I worked with him from birth until he passed away at 6 years old, but he was never going to walk or talk or whatever. And what a privilege to be able to work with him to make sure he had mobility in his arms and his legs. He wasn't real stiff. One of my glowing moments was when he was lying on my table and I walked to the other side and he turned his head to look at me. And his mom just cried. She said he's never followed anybody's movements before. And so, there was progress because blood carries oxygen. You get more oxygen to the brain when you get that blood flow. And so he was really an important part of my life. And they moved to Georgia for the dad to go to college. And like I said, he never turned over, he never walked, talked, nothing. They had a Hoyer list to put him in the tub as he grew older, all that. Well, they laid him on the couch while they were setting up his crib. He turned over and smothered. And he had never turned over before. We all took that so hard.
Yeah.
But to be able to work with somebody like that and make a difference, and the public knows that you do stuff like that, you're willing to work with all populations. It depends. Some people specialize. They only want to do sports or they only want to do lymphatic work. And that's good. I say, be the best you can at what you do. But I'm one of those people, the more tools I have in my toolbox, the more people I can see.
I think that's just a little bit of that overachiever shining through.
I know.
Okay, what about the flip side of that? Any insights on, in your time in this career of massage therapy, where you've noticed practitioners changing how they view themselves and the work that we're doing?
Some practitioners are much more confident now, I think, because of the education that's available for them, especially if you're specializing in something, the education that's out there for them and the research that backs up what we do. I think research has come such a long ways and has so much more to grow that I'm really excited about that. So yeah, I've seen changes. I see a more qualified therapist, I guess I would say, than in the past. Like I say, a lot of those therapists had no formal education. They just knew it felt good. I always used to massage grandma's shoulder. She said, I have good hands, and that's not bad, but it depends on who you're going to work with. Sometimes you need to know contraindications and things like that. So yeah, I've seen a change.
And then I'm particularly interested to ask you this question, Dolly, because you kind of have this 10,000-foot view in some of your roles in the profession that you've served. It can be easy for someone like myself who's down lower on the totem pole, so to speak. Do you feel like we're headed in the right direction in this profession?
Yes, I do. And I think we're going to continue to go forward. And I think we're going to continue to grow. And I think we're going to continue to elevate the profession. Absolutely.
Let me ask you kind of as a follow-up, Dolly, if you had a magic wand in your hand and you could change, what's the next step? What do you really hope, wish, think needs to happen moving forward?
Oh gosh, it would be nice if all the states required the same amount of education. All of the states required continuing education. I think we would be more respected like that. I don't know. For my husband to practice as a chiropractor, he has to have a state license, but he also had to take 4 parts of a national board exam. I'm not saying we have to take all 4 parts of a national board exam, but to have consistent standards throughout, I think we would have much more respect rather than have some states have this, some states have that. I think if there was more consistency throughout the United States. I mean, look at Canada, their education, some of them compared to ours, there's a difference.
Let's talk a little bit about preserving the past before we get out of here. Do you collect or preserve massage therapy's history in any way? Books, stories, equipment, photographs?
I haven't, and I really wish I would have when I was in Evanston more often at the AMTA national office. I wish I would have because they have a great library there right by the office. And when I was there, they were selling a lot of massage archives. That was many years ago. And at the time, it's like, oh, I'm not carrying all those books back home. They have to take them on the plane. Hindsight, it would have been nice. But yeah, can't go back.
Yeah,
I don't have it.
let me ask you a little bit, Dolly. Let me get my grubby little hands on the AMTA archives. Are those, do they exist? Are they accessible to, like, if someone were to fly up to Evanston and want to check them out? Is there anything like that going on?
I don't know if it's still there at that library or not. They were selling books they were selling stuff at that time. So I assume they sold or got rid of them. I don't know. But, we used to go to the library and just look around because we had spare time after our meetings and I'm a bookworm.
Yeah.
And so, but I go back and I look and I think, oh man, this is cool, but no, I already have enough massage books. I don't need this. Hindsight, yeah, maybe I did, but I don't know if they would have anything like that.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
sure you've talked to Pat Benjamin, right?
Yeah, we love collaborating with Pat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of,
She's great.
I look to her as kind of like the founder of history collection,
Yeah.
especially with AMTA at least.
Yeah.
What do you see as the value or challenge to keeping this history alive today?
Oh, I think there's value in it because I think we can learn from it, how things used to be. Some things were great, some things we never want to go back to. And I think that's important that we know that. But then there are other things. It's like, well, maybe that was a good idea, but we can learn from it. And like I say, some of the older practitioners, I mean, we can learn from them also. I visited, there was a man in my area who passed away. He's much older than me, but he had a little casita outside of his house on Lake Michigan where he did massage. And so I went to look at his equipment. Oh my gosh, he had a heat lamp over the top of his massage table. He had this big tub, a water tub that you could get in and soak in. I mean, it was an amazing space, so dated. And they were selling all of his oils and everything. It was all baby oil back then. And it was just like a step back in time. But he was the first, I think, massage therapist in Muskegon, Michigan,
Hmm.
probably. And he had this great space, a very large man. And yeah, and for a male massage therapist to be the first one and be that successful, always respected. So that's why I wanted to go and just see, if I could buy a piece of his equipment. I bought a little picture, a little thing of reflexology to hang on my wall that he had that was old. I no longer have that either. I wish I would have kept it, but I sold it with the practice.
Oh, shoot. Well,
Yeah,
you're not alone in that. So again, give
I
yourself,
know.
like, don't carry that as a chip on your shoulder, I guess. Is there any way, Dolly, that an understanding of massage history or even like the work of people that came before us has shaped your own practice, your philosophy, your volunteer work?
Yeah, Bob King was real instrumental. Although I didn't go to Chicago School of Massage, Bob was real instrumental in our profession and the value of volunteering and community service. He was always like, help out your fellow man. Do what you can to help. It's not always about money. That has always stuck with me to do some kind of outreach work, and it can be whatever you feel that you want to do or that you can afford to do. When you first start in practice, you need every dollar. You can't afford to do all freebie work. But when you can, do it just a little bit. And that I learned a lot from Bob King. And also somebody else that's instrumental is Benny Vaughn. Can learn from Benny Vaughn. He's a brilliant man.
No arguments here. Let me steer us into some closing thoughts as we come upon our closing time, Dolly. I think I've got 5 questions at least left. When you look back on your time in this career of massage therapy, what are you most proud of?
Oh man, that's a that's a hard one. I guess making a difference in so many lives, whether it be fellow massage therapists by advocating for them, or clients by helping them lead a better life, or my family because I'm a better person because I'm happy with what I do. So I truly feel blessed.
I can't imagine how you could not feel I mean, you've laid it out in so many stories that you've shared here today, Dolly. I mean, the scholarship that's named after you, the being on Dr. Oz, and then these intimate stories with some of the clients that you've worked with too. I mean, it's got to be a rich story that you look back on this time that
It
you
is.
massage.
It is.
All right. If you could record one historical figure's account of massage therapy, someone who's no longer with us, who would you choose? Talk about why.
Oh, I think Dr. Leon Chaitau. because fibromyalgia was very new, and we were getting referrals from doctors to work with fibromyalgia patients, and they were telling us to do a certain kind of work. And from Dr. Chaitaw, he's like, no, they don't get it. You don't want to do that, you know? And so he really made a difference because he really knew what he was talking about, where some of the doctors, fibromyalgia was all new to them. And so they were learning also. But he really had his finger on that pulse and knew what he was talking about. I think him.
All right. Kind of avant-garde in terms of fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, who should we put in the hot seat next time? Who should be in your position on the podcast as a guest next time?
Christopher Deary.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Love the Dearies.
I know. They're deers, aren't they? But no, they practice in Oklahoma and now in Pennsylvania. They're educators. So yeah, Christopher has a lot to offer.
You know, it's interesting. I didn't even know about the Oklahoma start until Zierlin. We had like a conversation between the two of us, and she was like, "Hey, you know, the Arkansas chapter gave me an award for," and I wasn't even in Arkansas. I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "Well, we were working in Oklahoma at the time." I was like, "Oklahoma?" I was born in Oklahoma, so that holds a
Oh.
special place. Yeah, love the Dearies. They are aptly named.
Well, we used to give the GR has changed so much. Back in the day, chapters could apply for a GR award for to help pay for their lobbyist. And Oklahoma applied for so much one time, and they didn't get the whole award. They got a partial one. And I was chair at the time, so Zerlin calls me up and said, "Can we have a conversation? Why didn't we get the whole thing?" And so we talked about there were other chapters that were more needy at the time. They weren't as far in the process of being regulated at that time. So that's why we still wanted to help them, but they weren't quite as far as other people that needed it more, and there was more urgency there. We had the most respectful conversation, and then Zerlin said, "Well, okay, then can you give our money to this chapter?" It's like, "No, we can't. The grants have already been awarded. Sorry." And so she said, "Well, can we just decline it then and put it back in your coffer?" I mean, we had the best conversation rather than being challenging, like, why didn't we get the money? We had an open, honest, and I respect people like that. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could stand a little bit more conversations like that going on.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Awesome. Final notes then, Dolly. Before we get out of here, anything you're up to these days? How could listeners learn more about your work, connect with you, support what you're up to these days? Anything to share on that front?
Not really. I'm just still here doing what I do. So volunteering how I can. Like I said, I'm involved with, it was really interesting when I attended the most recent HICPAC CPT meeting by the American Medical Association. New CPT codes are being developed now because of all the AI work.
Oh,
And they were talking about developing a new code for red light therapy and AI and all that. And of course, that piqued my interest because some of our massage therapists use red light therapy. So just, I'm still keeping my finger on the pulse, still seeing what we can do to advance the profession. So I'll know if more comes of that. Right now, it's just an observation that they're doing about possibly creating a CPT code for it.
gotcha.
So
Interesting. Call
yeah,
out everybody, maybe pay attention, track that movement as that's going on.
right.
Is there anything we didn't cover in our 2 hour conversation here that you would like to add? The mic is completely yours. Run with it as long as you like.
Thank you, Kirby. I really don't think so. You've asked me a lot. I hope I've answered all of your questions. It's been an honor to be invited to do this. So thank you so much. I'm an oldie but a goodie. And there are several of us out there that still love what we do. We still practice. We're still making a difference. And I encourage others. I mean, I encourage others to get involved and be the best you can be. Don't try to be somebody else. Be what you want to be. Specialize in what you care about. And you can and you will make a difference.
Gosh, that's kind of your legacy in a nutshell, I would say, Dolly.
Oh, thanks.
This has been a delight to me too. I'm so glad that Jeffrey recommended that we reach out and get this conversation on the books with you because I've learned so much about you and the work that you've done for us and to help advance and advocate for us. So Many, many thanks to you, Dolly, and especially for being here today.
Well, and thank you, Kirby, for what you're doing. It's very special and it's very much needed. So thank you.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider donating to the Society of Massage Archives so we can continue to bring you this episode and other resources to fulfill our mission of preserving and integrating the historical knowledge of massage therapy's professional advocacy and traditional techniques to guide and enrich our contemporary practices. Thank you. You have listened to the Hands of History podcast, a production of the Society of Massage Archives. You can learn more about the Society at societyofmassagearchives.org. We also on Facebook and Instagram. Do you know someone whose hands that help shape the practice of massage? If you or someone you know would make a great guest for future episodes of this podcast, please email the Society at societyofmassagearchives@gmail.com. Society of Massage Archives, all one word, @gmail.com.